That this was a radical package is just not true. A third of them were tax cuts, and they weren't, when you say they were boutique tax cuts, Mike, 95% of working Americans got tax cuts. Small businesses got tax cuts. Large businesses got help in terms of their depreciation schedules. I mean, it was a pretty conventional list of tax cuts. A third of it was stabilizing state budgets. There is not a single person in here who, had it not been for what was in the stimulus package, wouldn't be going home to more teachers laid off, more firefighters laid off, more cops laid off. A big chunk of it was unemployment insurance and COBRA. Just making sure that people had some floor beneath them. And, by the way, making sure that there was enough money in their pockets that businesses had some customers. You take those two things out, that accounts for the majority of the stimulus package. Are there people in this room who think that was a bad idea? A portion of it was dealing with the AMT, right? The alternative minimum tax, not a proposal of mine. That's not a consequence of my policies, that we have a tax system where we keep on putting off a potential tax hike that is embedded in the budget that we have to fix each year. That cost about $70 billion. And then the last portion of it was infrastructure, which, as I said, a lot of you have gone to appear at ribbon cuttings for the same projects that you voted against.
This past Friday, President Obama did a speech before members of the Republican Party. Other presidents have done similar events, including President Bush, and they do a question-and-answer session off-camera afterward with their opponents across the aisle. However, the Obama administration the night before proposed the question-and-answer session be broadcast live. Isn't this the transparency Republicans have been crowing for? The Republicans smelled an opportunity and accepted. Armed with many of the slam-dunk talking points featured heavily on Fox News, they smelled blood. However, a funny thing happened. Many of the slam-dunk points peddled by right-wing talk radio met reality, and outside the protective womb of Fox News and its ilk came out a draw at best for the Republicans. Some Republicans privately admit they blundered by accepting President Obama's offer, and independent sources I've heard say this sort of unrehearsed give and take will never happen again, because in the future the Republicans will protect themselves with prearranged ground rules. Yet the best indicator of how poorly the Republicans did is to watch Fox News rushing home to their bunker to call general quarters. The first indicator, as pointed out by MSNBC, was that Fox News pulled out of the live broadcast early. In a moment I'll show you that clip. Observe Fox News' anchor not just pull away, but, with a deer-in-the-headlights look of discomfort, kick off the sniping. Since that event, I've watched several hours of Fox News. In that time, I've seen only one liberal, Susan Estridge, interviewed on the subject, and she was facing off against Rick Santorum. Many conservatives, including Rudy Giuliani, Stephen Moore, and Karl Rove, have done far longer segments solo, respinning the whole affair into a Republican victory. Not to mention, I caught a second extensive solo spin job featuring Rick Santorum. I'll give you a sampling with a clip of Karl Rove on Fox and Friends later.
And then on the other hand, saying that we're somehow going to balance our budget, I'm going to want to take a look at your math and see how that works. Because the issue of deficit and debt is another area where there has been a tendency for some inconsistent statements. How's that? All right.
Mr. President, a point of clarification. What's in the Better Solutions book are all the legislative proposals
I understand
that were offered.
I've actually read your bills.
Well, that's President Obama. He is meeting with House Republicans in Baltimore, answering a bunch of questions, everything from energy to health care. The president at times being a little bit combative and supporting his. I mean, he did acknowledge a couple of mistakes along the way, but much like he did in the State of the Union, has very much held firm to the beliefs in what his administration has done.
Exceptionally well. Did this help him, because he invites the camera and he paints Republicans as the party of no? Does this get us anywhere in terms of bipartisanship?
Well, it gets him someplace, but you're right. Well, where does he want to go? David Axelrod, his senior advisor, said yesterday that the purpose of this was political, to in essence frame up the November elections as the Republicans as the party of no. So no, it didn't get us any forward movement on bipartisanship or solving things. It gave the president a high-profile venue in which he could say things he's got to know are fundamentally not true. For example, Congressman Jeb Hensarling of Texas said, Mr. President, your next budget, is it going to continue the line that you have adopted last year of tripling the national debt in 10 years, and will it protect the 24% increase in spending that you've gotten since last January? And President Obama said that's untrue. Well, wait a minute. That's from the president's own budget documents. The president last February got the Congress to approve with Democrat votes a budget plan that explicitly calls for doubling the size of the national debt in 5 years and nearly tripling it in 10. And the president sat there and said that's not true. I mean, Tom Price, one more example. Tom Price of Georgia said, you said, Mr. President, we're the party of no ideas and no solutions. And the president immediately shot back, I never said that. Well, wait a minute, Mr. President, that's exactly what you said. So look, President Bush went to the Democrat caucus, but he took questions and answers, but he did it off camera because he wanted to try and build a sense of trust. President Obama went to the Republican caucus, good for him. He took questions and answers, good for him, but he insisted that they be on television so that he could have a way to speak to the American people. Those were just props, and his purpose was to say, this is political, these guys are bad, these guys are no, they have no ideas. Now, the good news is he was forced to admit that the Republicans did have ideas. I noticed a couple of them, like Paul Ryan and others, went out with statements immediately afterwards saying, thank you, Mr. President, for acknowledging that we have offered ideas. You just rejected them. So the president can't have it both ways.
Well, Karl Rove is going to be sticking around because we're going to be talking about a stunning new report about Nancy Pelosi and waterboarding and the CIA. You don't want to miss that when we come back.
Isn't it amazing, in all of Karl Rove's accusations of the president's misrepresentations, that Karl spins his own web as a seat by claiming the president insisted on having the question-answer portions of the caucus meeting broadcast live. It was the Republicans' meeting which they controlled. All the White House did was make a request. Why suddenly is transparency a bad thing? Well, of course, it's because the president is playing politics, while naturally in the eyes of Karl and the conservative bobbleheads on Fox and Friends, the Republicans clearly aren't. Is this merely sour grapes proving they got badly stung?